You're listening to Big World Network.
Phineas Frakture and the Dolonites, Episode 6, written by Joseph Gatch, read by Michael Young.
Creating an army? My God, if they released all of these onto the streets, brought more victims. Wait, are you saying that these are the people that they have taken over the years? Abigail was flabbergasted. They walked around the containers, examining the subjects suspended in them. Every so often they would come upon a pile of discarded clothing, torn and covered with dirt and blood.
This is their fate, now we know. The taken are transformed into Dolonites, said Phineas. He touched one of the containers, and the being inside reacted by thrashing about. This time Phineas didn't flinch. Instead, he dropped to one knee and began examining the pedestal on which the tank rested. Phineas removed a screwdriver from one of the pockets on his belt and opened a panel on the base of the pedestal. Shining his light inside, he examined the clockwork mechanism, the order of gears, the directions the pipes were leading. Mechanisms that he could only dream of were here to study, and this had been here for more than 30 years. Whoever had created these must have been a genius in his time. But why down here, and for what purpose? He jammed the screwdriver into the gears and was rewarded with a squeal and a snap as the mechanism shattered. The pneumatic pump on the unit stopped, and the being inside began thrashing around again, this time more violently. Phineas stood back and watched, showing no emotion whatsoever. Then, as quickly as it had started, the Dolonite-to-be stopped moving, and then floated listlessly in its transparent grave.
"One down and a few hundred to go," Abigail said.
"Let's find William and get out of here," was all Phineas said in reply. His mood seemed to have darkened since the discovery, Abigail thought. She had never seen him so serious, even when he was intent on a project in his lab. This was personal to him now. That much was obvious. They traveled through the maze of tubes, expecting to find William suspended like the others, but still there was no sign of him. Neither was there any sign of the Dolonites themselves. They had expected to meet at least some resistance by now. Then, as if in response to their apprehension, a howl of despair echoed from somewhere in the complex. "Which way did that come from?" asked Phineas. Looking around, Abigail couldn't pinpoint the source.
"It's coming from all around. I don't know. There's too much of an echo down here." "William!" "What are you doing?" hissed Abigail. "They will hear you."
"And so will he if he's conscious. Would you rather wander around here until he is wearing one of those suits, hooking you like a slab of meat?"
"William, get out that lazy bump of yours and tell me where you're off to. And you had better have my coil or I'm retracting your fee."
"You are so tactful. Would you rather him think that he is hallucinating? Or at least he will know that it's me."
"Good point. Even hallucinations are not as pompous as you are."
"There you go, calling me that again."
"I am not pompous. I'm well-spoken." "William, Mrs. Popkiss has some crullers for you."
Nothing. Phineas began running, looking every which way. Abigail raced behind him and then slammed into his back as he stopped suddenly. Without a word, he stalked off to the left and stopped again in front of what looked like a typical street front building. "This doesn't seem to belong here," he said as he tried the door. It swung open partially and then stopped as the door struck something within. He pushed with all his strength and finally had enough room to squeeze through. Rocks, he found, were the cause of the barricade. The ceiling had collapsed from the weight of the rocks falling on the roof of the building. Before the collapse, from what he could see, the front room had served as a parlor, just as it would in any normal household. There were paintings on the walls of men and women in various poses. A fireplace was set off to the side, and remnants of chairs and a sofa were crushed under the rubble. A decanter of red wine lay untouched on a table next to a wall. Phineas picked it up, tasted it, and spit it out. Past its year. They moved on to the next room, a dining room slightly demolished, and then the next, which was a kitchen. The entire back of the building was intact, save for one collapse in a very inconvenient place, right where the occupant had been sitting at the time. A large boulder lay on top of the crushed remains of a corpse, now nothing but clothes and bones. He had been sitting behind a desk when it had happened, and it seemed that fate had chosen the proper time to end his life, for nothing else in the room had been disturbed. "Pity," Phineas said. "Looked like a nice chair." Files, schematics, papers of all sorts were spread out on the desk and on tables around the room. Along the walls, bookcases contained every sort of scientific journal one could imagine, from mechanics to basic science to advanced eugenics. Phineas scanned the volumes and pulled out one in particular by Darwin. "Let's hear it for unnatural selection." He tossed it in the bin and moved to the schematics, which showed the layout of the cavern, the inner workings of the vats containing the dolonites, and the master system of the entire operation. "Ahem," said Abigail. "We're not looking for William?" "Yes, but this is everything. Whoever that is lying on the floor over there was the mastermind behind the whole thing. The father of the dolonites, if you will. I need to see this." "Then if it's all the same to you, I will continue the search." "What? Alone?" "You can't." "Why not? Think about it. Have they ever attacked and taken a woman?" Phineas thought about it. "No, you are right. The only time a woman was attacked was when she tried to save a man, and she was just tossed aside like a doll." "Then it would stand to reason that I, going alone, would stand a better chance of getting past them than if I were with you, correct? Maybe it will be better if I search alone. Find what you need here, and I will come for you when I found him." "Very well. It's against my better judgment, but I think you may be right. Just be careful." "I will." Abigail looked at Phineas, who was already sorting through the treasure trove of information like a whirlwind. A man obsessed, but not with her, unfortunately. Maybe when this was all over, she would have him to herself, but somehow she knew that he would always choose concrete science over ethereal love. It was just his way. Something that he could show on a schematic and stand firm behind. Phineas watched Abigail out of the corner of his eye as she left. Part of him wanted to go with her, to find his friend and get the hell out of this nightmare. But part of him wanted to stay and find the answers that he had longed to find since that fateful day. When this was over, he thought, maybe then it would be a good time to move forward in his life. But not now. Now he needed to be focused, not just for himself, but for everyone, every child who saw a loved one dragged off in the middle of the night, shattering their lives forever. Opening the center drawer of his desk, Phineas pulled out a yellowed envelope with an odd seal on it. He opened and pulled out a letter dated 1854. The letterhead stated, "From the desk of Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States."
You're listening to Big World Network.